in air quotes. I like realizing. Realizing is a word that vibes better for me. So first I'll start with the common mind, and we can maybe work outwardly from there. The reason that this is so easy for me to talk about is because I was the same, so I'm not special. I wasn't born in a Buddhist monastery, 1,000 miles away from civilization or anything. So my spider's web that I have woven, and we use this as an analogy often, my spider's web isn't always so elegant. Like there's some areas where it's kind of messy. And it is what it is. I've already created that web. I'm not trying to change it, control it. I'm just creating new web that is more elegant because of the practice. So the common mind is doing a lot of thinking. Can we agree? So some of this, I just want to get some basic agreements. That way it's not just Ernest talking shit. There's a little bit of consistency among us, but in general, the human mind is doing quite a bit of thinking. And I can't see chat. So if you do agree, like you can agree there. But Shayna, do you agree with that? The human mind in general.
Lots of words. Lots of
Lots
words.
of
Lots
words,
of words.
right? Lots of words. Can we agree on that? So Donna agrees. I think
agree.
most of us. Lauren agrees. Karen
Yes.
agrees. Dope. Okay.
Ida agrees.
All right. So Ida, well, if we're doing all that thinking, we're thinking about something, right? I mean, so what are we thinking about? Well, one of the most common thought streams, well, almost all of our thought streams are going to be centered around what I will call universal desire or human nature. And I'll talk more about that as we go along. But in general, the human mind is focusing on a lot of different things. And most of those are exterior. They're little bubbles, little chat bubbles over our heads as we think about our problems or we think about our desire. That's a huge one. People love to think about their desire, what they want, what they don't want. They love to complain. Their mind is complaining. Oh, I don't want to be here. Why am I there? The common mind is doing a lot of judging. It's thinking thoughts about other people. So yesterday I did that in a joking way. So I didn't do it too much out of balance, but I definitely did it. I saw Deepak, and boy, that shoulder was dangerous. It was up by his ear. And that's an observation. So I just observed that, noticed that, and then I thought a thought that his shit's gonna hurt. So that's a thought about another person, and that is a form of judgment. And then I joked about it just for a moment for fun, but that's just my humor. But so at the end of the day, the human mind is doing a whole lot of thinking, and it's creating these little imaginary chat bubbles of focus of whatever it's thinking about. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that analogy, at least? Like these little thought bubbles of what we think is important, that's what we're thinking about. Judging people, judging circumstances, judging our own circumstances, judging the world around us, comparing and contrasting, trying to figure it out. These are pretty common thought streams. Would you agree? Commonly.
Yes, lots of chat bubbles.
Yeah, lots of chat bubbles. I guess what I'm saying is, can I get an amen? No, because amen does mean agreement, but I'm not going to say it like that. I'm just kidding. So, but do we agree, just so we can move forward? But yeah, so the human mind is doing a lot of thinking, creating these little imaginary chat bubbles of thought. Some of them feel good, but most of them probably don't. We don't know, because the emotional derivative is just something that we're experiencing, and it's not really something that we're creating deliberately. And most often we're not paying attention to it as it happens. We only realize that we feel anything is when we start to feel shitty. So, and that's just what's most common. I'm not saying, this group here, of course, but it's just a commonality. So what happens with the nature of desire in this dynamic is that desire is a chat bubble. It's a thought bubble. It's something that is typically quite exterior. It's a new house, it's a new car, it's a new form of entertainment. It is some sort of gratification that exists on the exterior. Typically, that is what the mind begins to focus on. And it could be the career, it could be thinking about a wide variety of things, but the object of desire starts to become exterior circumstances, such as I want financial freedom. Well, that finance is a thing outside of you. It's a concept that we all created, and we're agreeing on right now that this green paper stuff is good for trade. So we've kind of just come to that agreement that this green paper stuff, has value. And so we all just agree and move forward. And that's the nature of societal agreements. But I digress. The human mind commonly is thinking a lot, and it's thinking about objects of desire. And furthermore, the object of desire starts to become this chat bubble. Maybe it's the perfect person, or maybe it's this relationship or that relationship, or, this thing or that thing, or, whatever it is. Can we agree on that?
Yes, and if I had that thing, then my situation would be better, or this problem would be solved.
Yeah. Anyone else? Does that sound familiar? Thinking about, so, we have a desire to figure it out. So what does the human mind do? It just thinks about it all the time, trying to figure it out. It wants to be better than other people, or it wants to compare and contrast and, classify, compartmentalize, and it's doing all of these things, and that is incredibly dysfunctional over the long term. So, but so far, can we agree the nature of desire tends to become a product of the three destroyers? And we talked about the three destroyers in a previous podcast, or it was a group study, I can't remember, but we talked about the three destroyers, and the hidden fourth destroyer, I don't talk about that one because people don't like that. But the first three destroyers are biological habit, social habit, and the habits that we've created already. A lot of the desire is coming from the three destroyers when the mind is not actively engaging or mindful of the present moment. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so let's flash forward, and now we're going to completely flip the script a little bit, and we're going to jump into the T practice. Not only that, we're gonna assume, for conversational purposes, that it is somebody who is well advanced in this practice, and by advanced I just mean they do it. That's it. The accumulation principle. The more you do it, the more you accumulate. It's just that simple. It's not complex. It's not, leveling up or anything like that. So, we're still on a par. We're either accumulating momentum towards inspiration, or we're accumulating momentum towards dysfunction. But we're always accumulating momentum. That's what we're doing. So if we flash forward to the T practice, and we start to get into seers training, and then a little bit into hydrostasy, which is an exterior practice. It's extra. But we start to talk about how to issue or how to direct personal power. Now, again, this is all just for the sake of communication. It's not absolute, but I have organized this information so that I can talk about it. But I'll start by talking about what I call universal desire, or it's a desire that we can see in the human experience, regardless of who you are, regardless of where you come from, regardless of what time you lived in. So this would be true for the human beings of antiquity, the same that it is true for the human beings of today, the same that it will be true of the human beings in the future. And it has consistency in the world around us, in other creatures, in other systems, in the stars and the quasars and all that good stuff. We can see these consistencies. So I'll start with some of the most basic human desires. So, and then I can relate how T connects to those basic desires, and then how all of those exterior things, they still have a frame of reference. They can still be a part of the nature of desire, but it's different. So universal desires are going to be desires that are consistencies. And you can look at babies and young people before they've learned language construct. They're expressing these desires just like we are today, and just like human beings will be forever. So one of those most basic desires, whether we acknowledge it now or not, is to feel peace. And by peace, I mean a functional mind, a mind that is not in resistance. Does that make sense? So that's going to be one of the very first desires. And when you look at the world around us, when you look at other creatures, they are not creating cognitive insanity, thinking about things and creating psychological time, trying to figure it out, thinking and thinking and thinking. The world around us isn't doing that. And so other creatures tend to live more harmoniously with the world around them because they're not engaging in psychological dysfunction. The human being is. The human being in general and commonly is engaging in a type of deep, severe psychological dysfunction. And it's called thinking all of the time, which is a form of communication. And that leads to attachment and identification to that stream of thought or who we think we are. Does that make sense? So one of the first universal desires that I have identified is alignment itself. And the feeling of peace is essentially the same as the feeling of alignment, balance, stability. Does that make sense? What is a baby
Yes,
doing?
and if it's a baby,
trying,
it wants
yeah,
it wants comfort. It
it
wants
wants
to be.
comfort, balance. Yes. I like the comfort one too, because a lot of our desire as a human being is to seek what is pleasurable and in some ways avoid what is not pleasurable. And comfort is pleasurable. We like comfort, which is another derivative of balance. So you can be comfortable internally in an uncomfortable situation externally. So we are looking for a type of internal balance and comfort. Does that make sense? Peace. It's a very simple desire. And every human being, whether they acknowledge it or not, has that desire because from peace comes alignment. And from alignment comes the virtues of everything, of the practice. Does that first desire make sense? Donna, you're on mic. Does that make sense?
Sure, it makes sense. It makes sense. Homeostasis of the body, the balance of the universe, climate, everything is trying to achieve some sense of, not trying, is in the process of achieving some sense of balance. And sometimes that's counterbalance, and sometimes that's flow, but it's all about balance.
Yeah. And so all of the other vibrations, I guess you could say, the other emotions I don't always equate with just, we feel other things other than just emotion. Intuition, our sensory perception, that's all a feeling, but isn't necessarily emotion. But we also feel emotion. So we're feeling more than emotion, but also emotion, if that makes sense. So the idea here is that the first desire is that stability, is that balance. The baby is learning to walk, they want to walk with balance. They're learning to sit up, they want to sit up with balance. They want to hold a spoon and put it up to their mouth, they want to do that with balance. So we fundamentally want to be balanced creatures. And I mean that both internally, physically, and everything else. So from this balance comes everything else. From this balance comes connection, love, joy, vibrancy, and everything else that we desire to feel. So we want to feel these things in the human experience across the board. And we've been talking about this since the dawn of time, that human beings have a desire for this type of purpose. Does that make sense? To thrive, to engage the world around us, to feel connection to the essence. We have that desire fundamentally. That's why I call it a universal desire, a principle of desire in the human experience. So from peace comes all of these other things. I don't have to try to find love. If I'm at peace, I find love everywhere. I don't have to try to find vibrancy. So this isn't a course on vibrancy. This isn't a practice on vibrancy or love or connection or understanding. All of that comes as a derivative of one thing: peace. Peace is a derivative of a mind that is engaging the present moment, or in other words, non resistance, the act of allowing. So from the act of allowing comes peace. From peace comes all of these feelings that we fundamentally desire as human beings. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Makes sense.
It makes sense.
So one of the other human desires is creativity. We fundamentally, this is a universal desire. How do I know it? Because you're doing it whether you acknowledge it, like it, or even know it. If you are not sleeping, then your attention is going out into the world. And every action that you make, every thought that you think, every emotional response that you have, all of that is a form of output that's going into the world, that's going into the universe in a manner of speaking, and you are creating it. So if you are creating frustration, anger, hatred, jealousy, physical pain, pain for other people, the conditions for suffering, that's what you're creating. If you're doing it unconsciously, then it's the common mind. If you're doing it consciously, you're probably insane. Like if you know that you're doing that and you're doing that on purpose, then it's very likely just a form of abnormal psychology and just insanity at that point. But does that make sense that the human fundamental desire, we're born into this world creating, and so is everything else. The tree that is blowing in the wind is creating wind resistance, and that wind resistance is creating vibrational output into the air, into the ether, into the universe. It's all interacting with everything. Everything is in a process of creation. Stars are creating, birds are creating, air is creating. Everything is in a process of collaboration, transformation, and creation. Does that make sense? Can we agree on that?
I think of it more simplistically. We're talking about balance, and balance is what, as an ecosystem, whether that's me as a body or me as a human being or me as part of all living things, the essence is balance. And since everything is moving and changing always, I navigate through that with a desire to have balance and comfort and peace, which is all the same thing to me. And that navigation, the way that I navigate that as it comes, is creativity.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of this is universal purpose. It's the purpose of the human being. So there's some other things as well, such as learning. Human beings come into this world instruments of learning. We take in information, we process it in a variety of different ways. We can process the world around us through sensory perception. And when we process it, we can categorize it. We can have it as a part of our working memory. We can have it as a part of our muscle memory. And we can even process things into what we call long-term memory. And that creates the construct of time. Time comes from this ability to remember and to essentially observe causality, cause and effect. So memory is a huge aspect of the evolution of human consciousness and the evolution of all consciousness around us. Memory is an important thing. So I'm not trying to figure out what memory is on you know the nuts and bolts of things. That's not my lane. That's not my area of expertise, I guess. But in essence, these are still human characteristics, human desires, our purpose to create, our purpose to learn and take in and process information. That's why when you see something new, like a new mountain, the mind loves it. it just fucking loves it because it's new. I've never seen it before. I'm able to process that into long-term memory and working memory and all my different forms of memory. And the human brain loves, 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 loves that. Does that make sense? That's why we love new movies. You know, you can still love a movie that you've seen 100 times, but we still love new movies. We love to see new things, hear new poems, hear new songs, and, you know, read new books. We like new, and that's okay. I don't think that there's a reason to declare war on that. But does that make sense? So these are all universal desires as far as I can tell.
Yep.
Any questions about any of this so far? All right, so here's the biggest difference between T and the way that the world commonly approaches the law of attraction. The world is focusing on chat bubbles. It's focusing on thought bubbles. It's focusing on things and stuff and circumstances and other people and social situations. T doesn't do that. T fundamentally works from the inside out. So with this practice, the first thing that we create by doing the practice, that's it. Where is my mind? Did I put it there? Where are my tricks of attention? Am I maintaining them? Am I remembering them? Have I activated a voice of power? Is my internal voice my best friend? One that is working for me rather than against me? One that is reinforcing principle, reinforcing my practice? Or is it just talking shit again? So if the mind is relaxed, and by relaxed I mean it's not resisting the present moment, and by not resisting the present moment I mean you're holding a trick of attention in some way, in some form, in some fashion. You are choosing to engage the present moment. The mind will relax and we will feel peace. Has anybody felt peace with this practice so far at all, to any degree?
Yes, definitely.
Any peace? So Shayna says
Yeah,
yes,
definitely for
That's
me
awesome.
too.
Peter, yes?
Yeah,
Okay,
very
cool.
much. Yeah.
It's a yes for me too.
There we go. We're getting
Karen.
some consistency. Thank you, Karen. All right, so we're getting some consistency there that this practice has helped us to feel more peace. Now, the thing is, this practice will start to focus on that feeling of peace, and it will get bigger. And the feeling of peace is a mind that is not resisting. And if the mind is not resisting, it will connect. And if we are connected to the world around us, then the floodgates open. Joy, vibrancy, love, understanding, patience, compassion, kindness, all of these things just flood into our experience because of the peace. That's what's allowing it to come into our experience. From peace, it all just starts flooding in. Does that make sense? So T starts to work with the fundamentals of desire. The first desire is balance, and that's the feeling of peace, the feeling of solidarity, of being rooted, of being grounded, of being firm. Even if we're moving to something, we have something we need to adapt to, we still feel like we got our shit together when we're doing it, if that makes sense. Feeling like you got your shit together, I don't know. That's just another way of describing the feeling of peace. So from the feeling of peace will come everything else. Everything else will come from that. And the feeling of peace fundamentally comes from the practice, from the third pillar, from paying attention to what I call the second ring of power. So it's all still a derivative of one thing, and it's having many different results that we can feel. So now I'm going to go into exactly how we can manifest our desire. Number one, the practice. And the practice creates the feeling of peace. I have actually been recommending something from the very beginning of this practice that can help a person to essentially issue personal power or connect to the nature of their own desire and find creativity, find alignment, find learning and balance and all of these things that the mind wants to do. It all just starts to happen the more that we focus on it happening. Does that make sense? It all happens more the more we focus on it happening. And now we're so far removed from these chat bubbles and these thought bubbles and focusing on exteriors. And the feeling of peace emanates from the Dantian. Have you noticed that? Has anybody else noticed that? That feeling of peace starts in that belly region. The feeling of balance and solidarity and firmness starts there. Or is heavily present there, I guess you could say. Still with me? I think I'm getting to the area where I cut out, so I'm gonna hang out for a second. Can you guys still hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry,
You
it
can still
takes me a
hear me?
minute.
It's good, but we're hitting that area.
Yeah,
right
you're hitting that area right this moment because I
where
can hear you, robot Ernest.
How about now? So just stay on the line here and then let me know when you can hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you right now. It just
You can hear
kind
me
of
now?
like
Yeah.
went a little robot Ernest there for a minute.
Yeah, it's the same area in Bloomington, and it cuts out the same spot every time.
Interesting.
Weird. Yeah. Jenny said it's because that area is low income, and they cut the internet in low income areas.
Really?
I don't know. That's what Jenny said. I haven't fact checked it.
I don't know. I mean, it makes sense, I guess, because you go out every time.
So, yeah.
All right. So, conscious creation, manifesting our desires. T starts with universal desire and universal purpose. If we're doing our practice, we will feel more peace. From peace will come all of these other feelings. And if we're doing the T practice, and I'll be specific here, Ida, the golden line. If we're charging the golden line, which is a huge part of my hydrostasy practice, we start to feel and pay attention to those feelings. And now we're getting the seers training that are present in the body, the joy, the vibrancy, the relaxation, the calm, all of those feelings that the creativity starts to flow. And that is occurring in the body. Does that make sense? That's where our perception of it will occur, is in the body.
Yep.
Is that okay? Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense.
So right now I am creating consciously.
Like also even the perception of
Yes.
when there's no peace occurs in the body as well.
That's true too. Yeah. We'll feel that in the body, and we'll feel it as essentially a discomfort. Like, I mean, I could break that discomfort down, but I'll just keep it pretty general for now, and we'll just call it discomfort. It's the opposite of balance. It's not firmness. It's anxious. It's depressed. It's rapid. It's unstable. It's like we don't know what we want. It's like we don't know what we're going to create or how to create it, and all of a sudden we're leaking power. And that is also in the body. Our experience is essentially, a combination of our body perception, how our mind is essentially, what's the word I want to use? It is processing what we're taking in through our body. Our body is a tool of perception. Our eyes, our ears, and everything else. Yes,
It's
Shannon?
making chemical reactions as a result
Yes.
of yeah.
That as well. That would be emotion. The chemical reactions are the emotion. We can feel more than chemical reaction, and I will call that essence, spirit, knowing, personal power. Those things are not necessarily chemical reactions, and I can't really prove that. So since it's not a chemical reaction, it doesn't really show up on a lot of our instrumentation. So I can't really prove it, but we can feel it in the human experience. So T really starts to dig into universal desire, the human desire to feel peace, to feel connection, to feel love, to feel vibrancy, to feel creativity, to feel purpose. And all of those things have nothing to do with the world around you. That is all an internal machination. Because the mind is not resisting the present moment, we connect to everything, no matter what the situation is. There is a form of connection. And I mean, it's an infinite scope of how that connection might feel, but it's there. And when we try to describe it, it gets quite poetic. So T starts with the foundation of human desire and the desire of all living things, as far as I can tell, to create, to have purpose, to become many, to evolve. That's another fundamental desire that every living thing has, is to change over time. We want to change over time. That's why we need to be adaptable. All of it comes together with the T practice. Just by doing it, we break up that resistance and we start to meet our natural desires on their own. Focusing on the golden line will help you feel those virtues, the feeling of peace, the feeling of joy, the feeling of vibrancy. Going into the body is where that exists. And the more that we go into what I call the golden line, which are just points of attention in the body, the more that that comes out. And Fox walking does that from day one. We start paying attention to the feet. And I do actually include the feet as a part of the golden line. So we start to engage our feet, then we start to engage our dantian, and then we start to engage the heart space, and then I start to engage the forehead area. And then when all of that is engaged, you get something around the head area that you can feel, that becomes tangible. And I don't want to talk too much about that, because you either feel it or you don't. And if you don't, this could sound like fiction and woo-woo. But when you start to feel that vibrancy and that connection, you can actually start to emphasize it in your experience. And I call that seers training. Is this starting to make sense at all?
Yep.
Now,
Yeah.
here's what it would. Oh, good. So here is what it kind of looks like in practice. I'm doing my T practice. I'm paying attention to my body, and I have my voice of power. That's essential first. So I have a thought-based mind that is creative right now. It's helpful, or it's just quiet. If it's not doing anything productive, then it's just quiet and it's just chilling. I'm okay with both. I'm okay with the mind that's just chilling, and I'm okay with the mind that is vibrant, creating good ideas, things like that. I'm good with that. So a mind that is functional is a mind that will be solution based. It will have good ideas. It will probably be witty, usually a little humorous as well. Like, you can start to find the humor in things when you're not taking it all so seriously and clinging to it. And then before you know it, you're getting that Buddha belly laugh about the silliest things. And, life is a little bit more enjoyable, because I view humor as an indication of human evolution, because not everything in the world that I can see has a sense of humor. My dog doesn't really find anything funny. He doesn't really get any of my jokes. So that's just the way it is. That's fine. Now, here's the thing. If we are in alignment with the world around us, all of these exterior desires, such as a house or financial freedom or whatever these things are, we will be okay with them or without them, because we're arriving with peace. If you arrive with peace, those external circumstances are just extra. So the job, the career, the things that you want, this, that, and the other thing, all of these desires, they become just a product of creation, because you can. You don't have to, but you can. And if you do, it's because you wanted to, and then you just do. Does that make sense? It might be hard to imagine, in the life experience that we're living, but that is what I'm describing here. So here's how it looks. We're practicing our T practice, and that will create the feeling of peace. You can put your attention into the Dantian and into your body and focus on that feeling of solidarity, of peace, of rootedness, of alignment. And you can start to feel that flow in your body. You will be more creative. You will be more insightful. You have the ability to learn. All of the universal desire can now be met because we are in the act of non-resistance. So let's say that you get a winning lottery ticket and you have peace. Who would rather have a lottery ticket and no peace? So it makes sense to have peace first, doesn't it? Maybe you do transdimensionally level up. Fine, you will arrive there with peace, joy, vibrancy, purpose, alignment, all of those things, because you're creating that internally first. And then you have a physical derivative second. Does that make sense? Are you starting to see the order of operations with desire and manifesting and the law of attraction? Are you starting to, is it starting to become clear?
Yeah, very much so. You're joining the dots.
So let's say Shayna has a job offer and she's doing her practice. She's going to see the job offer. She's going to feel into her body and she's just going to choose because she can, not because she has to, not because it is being overemphasized and it's not out of balance. She'll just choose. Do I take this job? How does it feel? Do I not take this job? How does it feel? And then we just choose and continue to move forward. And before you know it, she's in the job that she wants, doing the work that she enjoys, around people that she vibes with. And that is called conscious creation. I am at a job right now that I enjoy. I got to make sure that I keep my focus, so that I don't lose that job. But if I do, I'll just move on to a different job because it's extra. I'm here and I like it because I've put myself here. But if something happened, like for some reason cannabis, nobody liked it all of a sudden, I'll just go find a different fucking job, and that's fine. And it will be a product of conscious creation, and I'll be exactly where I want to be. So I don't have to think about it. I don't have to try to control it. If I continue to find peace first, I'm going to end up in the house that I want. I'm going to end up with the car that I want, with the job that I want, with the people that I find, the most connection with. And then before you know it, you're looking at your life experience and everything is where you put it. The art on the walls, I've chosen that from peace. The clothes on my back, I've chosen that from peace. And I don't attach to it. I don't cling to it. It is a derivative of peace. It is a derivative of love and joy and connection and vibrancy. So I can enjoy the new t-shirt with peace, but I can also enjoy not having the t-shirt because I have peace, and that's called freedom. I can have or not have, and I still feel peace, joy, vibrancy, love, connection. So by finding the feeling first, I can follow that feeling, and keep in mind, the prerequisite is for all of this to be effective in any form or fashion, you have to have a voice of power. So the mind has to be a voice of power, not the common mind, not the habitual, repetitive, trying to control mind. So our thinking mind must be taking on the quality of the voice of power for all of these other things to be occurring. Otherwise, oftentimes what we create is just a product of the cognition, the way that we're thinking about things. And then we find ourselves with shit that we don't really want, situations that we don't really want, that we thought we did, with people that we don't really want, that we thought we did, because we thought that this exterior thing would bring us happiness, or this exterior situation would bring us satisfaction, or that creating is something far off that we're not able to do unless all of these other ducks are in a row. No, we've completely reverse engineered the dynamic. Peace inside, vibrancy inside. Pay attention to the peace, you'll feel more vibrancy. Pay attention to the vibrancy, you'll feel more vibrancy. When you feel more peace, when you feel more vibrancy, all of your exterior manifestations will be a derivative of that. And you don't have to try to figure it out. You don't have to try to control it. I have a vision that feels very good to me. I want to sell my art in the sun because of the feeling. But I could do that in front of my own business. I could have a business that I own and I could be sitting out front. I could be traveling around the country and setting up art stands. I could be living in a town and just doing local art stands. I could just do it once a week. I could do it once a month. It doesn't matter. However I do it, I will be doing it because I want to be doing it. I will be putting myself there. Does that make sense? Conscious creation, manifesting desire without trying to control, without trying to figure it out.
Yep.
Makes sense to me too.
So here's the procedure. And the procedure, we start with basic alignment. And I have snuck in aspects of basic alignment that can be used much further down the line. So, and by down the line, I mean, further in this practice. The more we do this practice, then we start to get into, other aspects of it, such as seers training, such as warrior training. And eventually we have the voice of power. Once we have the voice of power, we have functional cognition. Once you have functional cognition, everything else is going to fall into place for you. No matter where you are, you will have peace, joy, love, vibrancy. And then finally, you'll have the opportunity to just express yourself authentically. And by authentically, I mean not trying to control, not trying to figure it out, not a derivative of dysfunctional mind. So your desires won't be a derivative of that. Your desires will be a derivative of alignment, of peace, of the feeling moving through you. So in practice, I want to maintain this as I go throughout my day. So I'm going to go into the dispensary, and I think some of the podcasts are ending this way. I talk about how I'm going to go into the dispensary because I'm doing my practice. So I'm going to go into the dispensary, and my number one goal is to feel peace. And if my number one goal is to feel peace, that's cool because I know how to do that. And it's called deliberate attention. The more my attention is deliberate, the more I have the voice of power, the more I will feel peace. And that peace will begin to radiate, and I will begin to connect. The more I connect, the more I maintain my connection, the more I allow the connection to move as I move and as the world moves. That's called alignment. That's called going with rather than against. That's called synchronization. And everything else that I desire will just be expressed. I will find humor. I will find creativity. I will find purpose. I will find the feeling of a light mind or enlightenment. All of these things are realized from peace being emphasized. And so I'm going to do that by maintaining my golden line. I put attention into my feet, into my dantian, into my heart, and into my, I guess you could call it the third eye. You can call it the forehead. I don't care. So I place attention into those areas. And I've been doing it now since, I don't know. I was doing it mostly when I was fox walking on my way to work at the restaurant. So 2016-ish, 15-ish. No, 16, 17, I don't know, whatever. So for all that time, I have been focusing on those areas, and it has led to a whole body awareness. I am aware of my entire body in space and time. And Shayna has also started to comment that she can feel her body in space and time. That becomes the lowest hanging fruit of a background of attention. And I'm going to go into the dispensary, and I'm going to maintain my golden line and my entire body, the feeling that I have in my body, I'm going to place my attention on. And that's seers training. I'm going to see myself in real time. I'm going to see my emotions. I'm going to see my vibration. I'm going to see my movement, my behaviors, the words that I speak. I can see that as it happens because I've trained myself to. I've learned how to do this through practice. And I'm going to focus on that feeling of vibrancy, of alignment. I might need to curtail it a little bit because at 7:15 in the morning, people don't like super vibrant earnest, and I get it. So I'm going to do a little bit of deliberate folly. and that's okay. It's not all about earnest. So, I don't have to walk in there doing cartwheels and shit because people don't like that. So I'm going to move into my day. I'm going to transition, and I'm going to do it with deliberate attention on my body and on the feelings that I'm creating: peace, joy, vibrancy. And that's coming as a virtue of connection to the world around me. I feel connected to the essence of the dispensary, the essence of having a job, the essence of being in a social situation with other people, the essence of my own alignment, the essence of my own enlightenment, the essence of my own yada yada. I'm feeling this. I'm paying attention to this. Like I'm shining the flashlight of my attention on this feeling as I go throughout my day. And everything that I create will be a derivative of that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yep, you're creating from a position of peace.
Yes. And I call that conscious creation, conscious manifestation, focusing on what you want. And what you want most, what I want most, is alignment, is the feeling of alignment. And that comes from peace and balance, that feeling of
And you're
alignment.
setting up that mood before you go in.
I am. Absolutely. I've set it up the moment I wake up, Ida, I start setting that up. Sometimes in my dream, I start setting it up before I wake up. I engage my practice the moment I wake up. Well, and now I got to go engage work. So I will see you guys again tomorrow if you can make it for the podcast. I'm going to do a special thing today at 5 p.m. So if you can make it today at 5 p.m., I'm just going to see how doing an evening thing feels. I have never, really done anything that late. So I'm just going to play with it and see how it makes me feel. And if I feel good about it, then I might use that time to start delivering some focused material. All that makes sense?
Thank you very much. That was very useful.
Of course, you're welcome.
Have
All
a good
right.
day.
Yes. Thank you so much. It does make
Yes,
sense.
you're welcome. And so with this practice, it doesn't matter what you create because you'll still feel peace, vibrancy, love, and joy. That's called freedom. So you could create a multi-billion-dollar corporation, or you could create employment at a factory. It doesn't matter because you'll arrive there with peace and joy and vibrancy and love and connection. Some people don't want to create Fortune 500 companies. Some do. You'll know when you're in that alignment, and you'll just do. That's what just do energy is. That's what personal power is. It's just do energy. So you'll just create. And someone will ask you, how did you create this Fortune 500 company? By putting one foot in front of the other without resistance. That's it. That's all I did. A lot of focus, a lot of clarity, a lot of understanding, a lot of feeling of creativity, all of that. Does that make sense? Or you create an art stand where you're selling your books and you're selling other people's art. Hey, I'm not here to judge your desire, but that's mine. All right, I will see you guys later. Thanks for hanging out. Hopefully at 5 p.m. tonight if you can make it. That's Central Time. All right, love you guys. See you soon. Bye.